We have to start with Biden's joint session of Congress speech, if you will, and assessment of his 100 days so far in office. So again,
and what are we thinking of Joe's first 100 days in office?
Well, it's not a complete disaster, but it doesn't mean it's that good.
But we have a very low bar, people.
We do have a very
low bar.
Oh, come on, man. What are you talking about? A really great job so far.
Okay, so let's start out talking about the good thing.
The good thing is that Joe made sure to have something lined up for his 100-day speech so that he did look good and people were chatting him up. And that included AOC and Representative Jayapal basically rolling out the red carpet and saying that he has an record for how he's done so far.
I'm not getting that, but I am pleased about the $15 minimum wage.
The $15 minimum wage for federal contract workers is obviously a great start. You have to start somewhere. And listen,
it's workers and includes tipped workers.
That is true. And that is very important. And hats off to the president for doing that. And that is going to amount to about somewhere between 375 to 400,000 workers.
Yeah, so that's a lot of people.
That is a lot.
It's obviously not as much as a federal mandate for a $15 minimum wage across the board. But it's no different than, I don't care how we get to Medicare for all, as long as we get there and get there soon. Yeah.
So if we have the opportunity to lower the Medicare eligibility age to 60 or even 55, as our good friend and local healthcare guru Cliff Easterman likes to say, it's going to basically become sort of that snowball effect down the mountain. Once you're able to get it moving and people can see the value in it, that's when you know it's going to happen. So all of these federal workers that will now have a $15 minimum wage, they're going to be very enthusiastic about. I think the average raise for them is going to be about $4 an hour. So that's pretty significant.
Yeah, no, the percentage increase is actually very significant and it's a big deal. So, I mean, that's definitely a good thing.
No, there's no question that is going to make a difference. It is definitely going to have some pretty solid effect in terms of, obviously the poverty issues that we have in this country. It is a poverty wage. I mean, even $15 an hour is not nearly enough.
And it doesn't happen overnight either.
No, it definitely doesn't.
There's that. It needed to happen 10 years ago. So
no, it definitely did. And of course, right now, knowing that there's going to be even greater pressure to basically say, well, that's great that the federal contract workers get $15 an hour, but what about us? You can't just give it to, one person. You got to give it to everybody.
So here would be my follow-up to Joe. Okay. This is what I would be like. Okay, that's great. You want to just give the $15 an hour minimum wage to federal workers. I would be fine with that if it came with a jobs guarantee. Because if it came with a jobs guarantee, that's essentially raising it across the board. Because if you have a guaranteed federal job at $15 an hour, that's going to force the hand of everyone else to be increasing their wages. So I don't mind this idea, but it should come with the jobs guarantee. And that would make more sense. And then he wouldn't have to raise the federal minimum wage. That would essentially force it.
Well, you have Representative Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts who is advocating for the federal jobs guarantee right now. That's obviously a great piece of legislation.
That in conjunction with this would really solve the minimum wage problem.
And of course, we can plug another show, Macro and Cheese, Steve Grumbine.
Oh, yes.
Jen is going to be...
When is that dropping?
That is dropping on Saturday, I believe.
So guys, check out Macro and Cheese. That's our friend Steve Grumbine's podcast.
We also are now being followed on social media by Stephanie Kelton, who wrote The Deficit Myth.
Fancy.
So certainly would be interested in having her come on the podcast at some point. We have to talk about...
You're digressing.
Well, you have to put all economic... potential options on the table.
Yeah, but this is at least something. But as far as the other stuff he's done in the first 100 days,
he's done a great job rolling out the vaccine distribution, at least from a federal.
The pandemic response
level
has been decent from him.
You got to give him where credit's due. But again, where's the bar?
The increase in the military budget. Not a fan.
No, I think we should talk about what's been good first, because there isn't a lot, and certainly give him credit where it's due. He has made some progress. You can't just say that there hasn't been any progress, but again, like you said, the bar's so low.
I'm concerned about what's going to happen with the Iran deal. I feel like it's very tenuous. I've got some concerns.
One step at a time. So he has done a pretty solid job overall, I would say, with the vaccine rollout. Now, of course, there's many reasons why that is an issue, because they're giving massive, massive subsidies to private insurance and big pharma, which we'll get into, because he isn't reducing He isn't allowing for negotiation of prescription drug prices, and we all know why that is. So in terms of that also being pretty good. And then, of course, you look at the stimulus package that they have put out there. The best thing that's out there, forget about the $1,400 stimulus check, which is $600 less than what it should be. It's a one-time check. It's not reoccurring checks. People have accumulated so much debt over time. You can't hang your hat on that. But the child tax credit is a big deal for a lot of people. So I would say that those are the three things that he has done.
And we need to back up and at least address the fact that the $1,400 is garnishable and seizable.
It's garnishable and seasonable, and it was means tested.
Yeah.
So there are potentially tens of millions in this country who didn't get it who should have gotten it. Because they were measuring income
based on prior COVID.
Of 2019, not 2020.
Right.
So you're already setting yourself up behind the 8 ball in terms of, where you're actually, or you should be at the very least, quantifying exactly how you measure income in terms of people who are eligible for the check. And they were doing it in such a haphazard way. And look, if we know these things, then they know these things.
Yeah, they just don't
doing
care.
It on purpose, which is what makes it so bad.
But one thing we were talking about last week was the UBI.
Yes.
And this is something that's interesting because of what's going on in California, because they just instituted, right? Wasn't that Garcetti? Mayor Garcetti is doing like the
in Los Angeles. Yes.
Okay. So there you've got, California seemingly on the cutting edge. And now this is going on. And I hope that you know what you're going to talk about this, because I'm not as familiar with all things Governor Newsom. But this is apparently an ordeal going on in California. Well,
are we going to talk about the negative things about Biden's administration, or you want to wait for the end for that, because that could take a while?
Oh, you're still on that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were moving on. Okay, we could still talk about that. You want to keep talking about? To me, there are just too many things to talk about.
There are, but you know what? You gotta, like I said, we give Biden credit where credit is due. He got the child tax credit into the stimulus bill. That obviously is very important. He has done a very solid job overall, I would say, with the vaccine rollout. And he just gave 400,000 workers in this country a very big raise. That is going to help. So you have to give credit where credit is due there. However, that is where it begins and that's where it ends in terms of what he has done on a positive note when it comes to being the president. And I know a lot of people are all concerned about the fact that he is a very steady hand compared to Trump. You want to throw that in. Look, have at it as far as I'm concerned. I understand a lot of people got extreme anxiety about Trump being president, and they like having a guy now who just makes them feel okay.
Well, everything's better now.
But everything is not better now. And so his primary campaign promises. We'll see what happens with the $15 minimum wage. But overall, his primary campaign promises of a public option, of a $15 minimum wage across the board, student debt cancellation, green energy jobs infrastructure, and then ultimately pulling our troops out of Afghanistan has not kept his word on any one of them. And you are now past the 100-day mark. And what does that mean? It means that the mandate is now over. And it means that they're going to get into the weeds. And it also means that the GOP is going to start to essentially obstruct everything that they're going to do going forward. So that's going to be a pretty big issue. Joe is way too ready, willing, and able to do bipartisan work, when in reality, we're not doing any work for those that really need it. It's all about corporate versus non-corporate.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Bipartisan in and of itself is not a good thing.
No.
If our Congress decides to work together to do policies that are regressive for working people, that's not good, even though they're working together. So you can be working together for bad things. So the idea of bipartisanship is completely bogus. There's no there there. The issue is, what are they doing on the issue? Are they doing the right thing that's going to help the most amount of people? So I love that term, though. It's such this virtue signal kind of term that they use. Bipartisan. I'm the one who can reach across the aisle. Yes. Your tentacles are long enough to reach across the aisle.
I think it was actually, if I remember correctly, I think it was George Carlin who said, yeah, bipartisanship just means that they're finding a twice as hard a way to screw you over. So
doesn't. I mean, that's just a silly thing to say anyway.
Yeah,
either you're on the correct side of an issue or you are not.
But we are certainly not in a situation where we are getting the true benefits of what's going on. And I would conclude Biden's 100-day, overall assessment, if you will, in terms of what it really means at this point. is if you are going to not stand on principle, if that is what is essentially happening now, that you are not going to actually fight the president if he's not fighting on behalf of the people, keeping the promises that he made. I mean, look, there are so many other things we could get into in terms of what Biden is doing.
His
wrong.
rating is fairly low, though, yes?
It has now dropped to 52%. It was once, I think, just under 70. So he's already fading, and it's the third lowest in 80 years. The only two who have had a lower rating is Jimmy Carter, not a surprise, and Donald Trump, not a surprise. So to say that it's lackluster would be an understatement. The perception that he's actually doing well comes from this idea that he is a steady hand, which compared to Trump, he is a steady hand, but that is not enough. This country is suffering mightily, and it is not good enough to conclude that we're doing a good enough job.
I also think part of the reason it might seem like he's doing a good job is he's been really not present.
That's true.
This State of the Union, I think, was like the second time he's.
It's only the second time he's actually spoken in public since he's been president. Yeah. That's almost 4 months.
Yeah. So
that's right. That's a red flag.
It is. And so I wonder if a lot of the even existing approval that there is only based on there's no news is good news kind of thing. Like they're not seeing him. It must be fine. Everything's fine.
Well, I can agree with that. And the last thing I will mention, which I think is important, is when Pramila Jayapal goes on national TV and says that listen, it's one thing to say that Biden has done some good things. And yeah, we were really pushing for Joe. But to go on national TV and say that Biden has done an A job so far, that is the A is the grade you're giving him for what he's done so far. And people wonder why the left is so feckless.
We have talk about a soft grading system. Like that's a really soft grading system.
I mean imagine if we were sitting,
low bar people.
Just imagine if we're sitting in a situation in the not too distant future where Pramila continues to kick the can down the road and doesn't think for a second that people are not going to come after her. If she continues to play this game of, yeah, we're not going to hold up votes for the sake of getting a public option, much less a vote on Medicare for all. We're not going to do anything in regards to a living wage, especially a $15 minimum wage. I am just throwing this out there as a warning shot. I think a lot of people in the progressive movement do not know how to organize properly or how to execute properly in terms of the candidates that they should get behind and where their allocation of funds should go. But I will say this. Kshama Sawant represents at the city level the area that Pramila Jayapal covers in Seattle, Washington.
That's very telling.
If Pramila does not get her act together, I would be making a push for Kshama Sawant to either primary Pramila or run as either an independent or with the new party, whatever. At some point, you have to make these people sweat. You got to make them sweat because otherwise power concedes nothing without demand. And this idea that they are going to laud President Biden without holding him accountable, listen, give him credit where it's due. But to say that he's doing an grade A job as president, this is why people hate politics.
But again, we have very low standards. And I think that we're like battered spouses. We just don't think we deserve any better. And that's just where we are.
Nevertheless, that is our assessment, I would say, so far as where the presidency stands. Obviously, a lot of things have to change, but you got to put the heat on. Now, again, it's not so easy to do that because, again, you want to be strategic and effective in terms of how you go about it. But Kshama Sawant is a rock star, and she is loved in Seattle, and they have come after her time and time again. At some point...
Yeah, she endured the whole wrath of Jeff Bezos.
If she could stand up to Jeff Bezos, who the hell is Pramila Jayapal?
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty telling. So, yeah, you would think. But, good luck to the people
you never
of
know
Seattle.
Listen, you never know, because at some point, the dam is going to break. And the one thing you know about Kshama is that if she were to challenge Pramila, she'd raise a lot of money. And that's ultimately what it comes down to for a lot of people. You have to be a commodity. She is. You have to raise the money. She can. And she has to be running against an opponent who is not living up to the credentials as the chair of the Progressive Caucus. She's not doing anything.
Well, none of them really kind of are.
And what I would do...
it's amazing to me that they even have a Progressive Caucus.
Well, at the bare minimum, what I would do is I would fire a warning shot. I would say, you're going to take initiative, and if you don't, we'll take it for you. So figure it out one way or the other. Because like I said, power concedes nothing without demand.
Unfortunately, that's not our district. So
not really but just a thought.
Yeah.
So with that said, speaking of primarying people.
Yes.
It seems to me that there's a lot of life lessons to be learned here for who I assumed was going to be running for president in the not too distant future. And now he's running to save his neck. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Now, you can debate all you want about whether or not this is warranted, merited, all of that.
You're going to have to tell me the story because I am not really familiar. I mean, this was sort of who they were hoping could be like the next like generation of their steady hand person.
Well, maybe that's why they're trying to prop up Mayor Pete, because
he's like
they
the good
see
Cuomo.
That Newsom, well, the good Cuomo. He's definitely not. So unfortunately, Newsom, like a lot of other big state governors, whether our governor DeSantis, who has horrifically handled COVID, Governor Cuomo, who has handled it the worst out of anybody, and now you have Governor Newsom in California. Now, how bad has he handled COVID? Can't really say for sure, but what I can say is that he has shut down the state multiple times. He has been mealy-mouthed about what is actually the proper procedure for people to follow as far as state guidelines, CDC guidelines. On top of that, when he had the opportunity to enact or select, if you will, the next U.S. senator for California, however temporary it may have been, because Kamala Harris ultimately became the vice president, instead of picking somebody who has not only paid their dues, but really works to the benefit of the people of California, the two people that come to mind probably more than anybody else,
Ro Khanna
and Barbara Lee. And ultimately, he chose none other than anti-Bernie partisan party hack, Alex Padilla.
Are you getting, is this a roundabout way to getting to this recall story?
So the point is, now that Gavin Newsom is getting recalled, he's really not catching a lot of sympathy.
Well, wait, can you explain what is the cause of the recall?
What ultimately stemmed from this recall and why it really caught fire is a lot of people were upset with how he was handling the lockdown in California. He was caught in one of the most exclusive restaurants in California, and probably not only the country, but in the world. It's a place called French Laundry. It's in Napa Valley. It's about, I don't know, $600 a person. You know, one of those extremely high-end places.
Wow.
He's not only eating there with a group of, I think, like 20 people, but they were all maskless.
Maskless.
And so this kind of set off this was the jump off point where people just said, I've had enough of this governor. I don't want to, we all know that everything he does is calculated based on where is he going next. And of course, Governor of California, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Jerry Brown, we've seen it before. They all end up either running or winning the presidency.
So who initiated this takedown?
Well, I don't know if there was a specific group, but this is a grassroots
there always
effort.
Leads to something.
This is hey, look, Caitlyn Jenner's running for governor of California.
Oh, for God's sake.
So as if the sideshow couldn't get worse. But nevertheless, this is an issue here that is substantially significant because this was a guy who was absolutely going to carry the torch for the party at some point. And if he gets recalled, that's it. I mean, it's bad enough as it is, and I don't know how he's going to be able to stem the tide from something like this. But I do think that this is a significant problem. And so ultimately, what is going to come of it? Don't know for sure. But much like the jungle primary rules in California, the recall rules are very unique as well. So Newsom's in trouble. There's no question he's in trouble. Is it definite that
plot thickens?
Yeah, the plot does thicken. Now, I don't know which way this is going to go. I really don't. I don't really know one way or the other.
It's not looking good for a presidential bid at this point.
Definitely not. This is definitely not the type of thing that you want to have.
Not a good segue into that.
You definitely don't want this around your neck. There's no question you don't want this around your neck. It's really, really bad for him. And it is ultimately going to cost him significant political capital going forward because he's going to have to address this. He can't run away from it. And the fact that, like I said, sometimes it just takes a viral moment for you to go down. And the fact that he not only was with a group of people maskless, but he was in what you call high a high society as it gets.
You mean kind of like a wine cellar fundraiser kind of situation.
Well, Gavin is the nephew of Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, well.
So there you go.
Hoity-toity.
Well, hoity-toity. Well, just settle down. Just settle down. But again, they feed us. Remember that. They feed us. You know, it's this to me is, it's sad. It's very, very sad. But nonetheless, we really need better leadership. And again, it starts at the grassroots level. So in California, I don't know if they are planning on are the progressives going to attempt to nominate or draft a leader of sorts to run in this recall election? Yet to be determined. But I do think that they should. Because in this type of recall election, you could have as many as 20 candidates running. I mean, this could be a free-for-all. Because remember, with jungle primaries, it's not a primary in the traditional sense. No. This is Democrats and Republicans running together. So you never know.
Speaking of a free-for-all, we may or may not get to speak with Amari Hardy. He said he's going to try to get on Zoom after he debates. So he's going in to debate this bill, and we need all the help we can get on this bill.
Yes, so let's hope for the best.
Yeah, we'll see if he can make it on here. That would be great. If not, we'll reschedule.
Well, I know he's supposed to go. He's supposed to go on, I think, like local TV. Like
yeah,
NBC,
he's on a local tonight
NBC
at 9
10 or something like that. So
yeah.
I mean, we may be up against it time-wise. We'll see.
Here, he just said, "Okay, I will click the link as soon as I'm done debating. I'm sorry about the delay. It's just difficult with the way Republicans are running the process." Yeah,
here.
Literally, that's the text.
No ish, Sherlock. Every time I think I'm going to say something negative, I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to bite my tongue. Because we don't want to get demonetized.
So but now our show is being held up by the Florida Republicans.
What a surprise.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.